Agatha Raisin and the Unnaturally Calm Suspect. In a village devoted to calm, one woman's serenity ends in murder, and Agatha Raisin is not about to relax until the truth comes out. Where in the world are you listening from tonight? Subscribe so you never miss upcoming mysteries. Doris, what on earth is that supposed to be? Agatha demanded, staring at the pale assortment of rolled mats Doris Simpson had arranged at the front of the WI hall. Doris looked up brightly, as though she had been waiting all afternoon for an excuse to explain. It's for our special treat this evening, Mrs. Raisin, a relaxation workshop, absolutely free. Agatha's stomach tightened. She had dressed for a respectable village talk. Tight charcoal skirt, heels that clicked commandingly, hair sprayed into submission. Relaxation workshop suggested leggings, chanting, and the sort of communal breathing she associated with people who used words like journey, unironically. Before Agatha could object, the vicar's wife floated over, beaming with the sort of saintly delight that generally meant trouble. "Isn't it marvellous, Agatha? Serena Dove is quite the discovery. Everyone says she creates an atmosphere of deep peace." "I don't want deep peace," Agatha snapped. "I want sherry." The doors creaked. A tall woman entered, wrapped in a soft wrap the colour of porridge left too long. Her hair was pinned neatly, her smile serene. She carried herself with the kind of poise that made Agatha feel as though she was slouching, even when standing perfectly straight. "Good evening," Serena said softly. "Let's find ease together." Agatha's lip twitched. Ease was never a word she trusted. Behind Serena trailed an assortment of characters, a red-faced man who looked as if he had been boiled in his own temper, a hunched, twitchy fellow with spectacles, a small, thorny woman muttering under her breath, and a chic, brittle-looking lady in a fitted coat who surveyed the WI hall as though it were a crime scene. Serena clapped softly. "If we all take a mat—" Agatha stiffened. "I'm not taking anything that requires kneeling." "Oh, just try," Doris pleaded, thrusting a mat at her with tragic optimism. Grudgingly, Agatha lowered herself, her skirt pulling unkindly across her hips. A chorus of squeaks rose as the women settled. The red-faced man, Gordon Bryce as he loudly introduced himself, dropped onto his mat with the graceless thump of a toppled wardrobe. "As soon as I buy up a few more cottages," Gordon announced to no one in particular, "we'll have a proper wellness hub here. Money and serenity, that's the future." Mabel Jarvis, the muttering woman, snorted. "Wellness hub my foot. This village needs decent hedges, not healing barns." Meanwhile, the brittle woman at the back, Gordon's ex-wife Lorna, as someone whispered, watched her former husband with the faintly pleased expression of a woman waiting for a clown to slip on a banana. Serena positioned herself gracefully. "Let's begin with gentle breathing. Agatha, soften your ribs." "My ribs are perfectly soft," Agatha snapped, then toppled sideways the moment she attempted the assigned pose. Her heel skidded, her hand shot out. Doris's thermos of weak coffee went flying, splattering across the parquet in a brown fan. A few gasps. Gordon barked a laugh like a seal on a rock. Charles Fraith would have said something sly and comforting. Bill Wong would have helped her up with saintly patience. But tonight she had only her pride, which was currently bruising by the second. Serena crouched beside her. "No harm done. Let's rise slowly, yes?" The gentleness felt like condescension. Agatha gripped Serena's offered hand, determined to regain dignity, but found herself hoisted upright as though she weighed nothing at all. She hated her immediately. As the workshop continued, the gossip began. Cotswold villagers could murmur rumours during a kidnapping, let alone a stretching exercise. People whispered that Serena's classes were booked for weeks, that Gordon had plans to convert a field into yurts, that Neville Pratt, the anxious man with spectacles, was always adjusting accounts, and that Mabel had already petitioned the parish council to forbid hippie nonsense on farmland. Agatha tried to participate, but every pose made her feel more exposed. Worse, Serena's smile never budged. No one that calm was natural. When the hour finally ended, Serena folded her hands. "Please join us tomorrow evening for a mindful supper. Food prepared with intention, shared in community." Agatha was ready to flee, but someone giggled, lightly, mockingly. She didn't need to turn to know half the hall was picturing her collapse. Pride flared. "Well," she said loudly, "I shall attend, and I'll bring a proper bottle of wine. Something adult." Doris beamed. "Oh, lovely, Mrs. Raisin." Serena simply inclined her head. "Your presence will enrich our circle." Agatha suspected that was nonsense, but she was boxed in by her own announcement. Gordon swaggered over, wiping his brow. "Always good to have sophisticated types involved, eh? Show these villagers we're moving up in the world." Lorna's voice drifted like a cold draught. "The only direction you've ever moved, Gordon, is sideways." Neville hovered behind Serena, mumbling about invoices. Serena nodded with patient calm that only deepened Agatha's conviction that something was off. Normal people snapped occasionally. Serena had the emotional temperature of a carved saint. On their way out, more rumours flew. Gordon had outbid a local farmer on a cottage. Neville had been seen arguing with him outside the bank. Lorna had asked about Gordon's will. Mabel had threatened to dig up every herb that woman plants. And someone hinted Serena had once worked in a London hospital, although the details were hazy. Plenty of red herrings, Agatha thought grimly. And one very shiny clue. Serena's irritating calm was not a performance. It was armour. Agatha stepped onto the lane, heels clacking sharply. The lamps along Carsley's narrow street cast soft pools of light, but she refused to let the evening end on a tranquil note. She strode past the vicarage, past the hedges that needed trimming, past Doris's fluttering wave. It was hardly humiliation, she muttered. A minor slip, hardly newsworthy. A hedge rustled in a way that might have been agreement, or might have been a startled hedgehog. By the time she reached her cottage, her irritation had settled into a tight coil of resolve. Nothing enraged her more than being laughed at, except being told to relax. And now she was committed to attending some ridiculous mindful dinner hosted by a woman who breathed as though she had a private contract with serenity. Inside, Hodge lifted his head from his armchair, blinking with the mild astonishment of a king interrupted. He stretched, yawned, and flopped back down, unimpressed by the emotional turbulence in the room. "Oh, don't look at me like that," Agatha said, kicking off her shoes. "I didn't fall. I tilted, and if this retreat thinks it can make a fool of me again, it's sorely mistaken." Hodge flicked his tail once. It was impossible to say whether he believed her. Agatha filled the kettle, her movements brisk, and caught sight of her reflection in the microwave door. Flushed cheeks, hair slightly askew, eyes glinting with indignation. She straightened her posture. "There," she muttered. "Serene enough." But serenity did not suit her. She preferred determination, preferably fueled by indignation. Tomorrow night she would attend that supper. She would do it stylishly. And she would find out why Serena Dove seemed as unshakable as a monk carved into a hillside. The kettle sighed. Hodge twitched an ear. Agatha poured her tea, already plotting revenge on anything labelled relaxing. "Hodge, stop that this instant!" Agatha barked as her cat shot across the sitting-room rug, batting a glossy leaflet like a hockey puck. Two more slid under the bureau, one skittered beneath the armchair, and another landed squarely on Agatha's slipper. The cottage looked as though it had been targeted by a deranged spar. She bent, snatching up the offending paper. Mindful Meadow Retreat, Transformative Serenity in the Cotswolds. The words were printed in soothing lilac, the sort of colour that implied herbal infusions and personal growth. "Oh, honestly," Agatha muttered, "transformative serenity, my foot." Hodge gave an unapologetic flick of his tail and strolled to his food bowl, quite satisfied with the chaos. She was tempted to rip the leaflet in half, but paused at the photograph on the front. Serena Dove, smiling faintly, looking as though irritation had never entered her bloodstream. Agatha's mouth tightened. No one had a complexion that calm without cheating. She tossed the leaflet on the table, though it landed a little too neatly. Annoyed that Serena even made paper behave, Agatha seized her handbag and marched out. The following day, with humiliation still prickling at her pride, Agatha decided she needed fortification by way of gossip. The mindful supper would be that evening. If Carsley expected her to glide in graciously, she needed fortification by way of gossip. By late morning, the Red Lion supplied exactly that. She pushed through the door and heard the low hum of village discussion. The place smelled of beer, baked potatoes, and faint disinfectant, comforting aromas that suggested nothing whatsoever to do with chakras. Marjorie Parks waved her over. "Agatha, dear, have you seen these?" She held up a Mindful Meadow leaflet as though displaying evidence of extraterrestrial visitation. "Unfortunately," Agatha said, My cat distributed several this morning. A group of women leaned closer. Serena's massages are heavenly, cooed one. I came out feeling like a cloud. Well, I smelt like one of her funny herbs for hours, muttered another, and my husband said I looked dazed. That might be normal for him, Agatha suggested. They were still laughing when Bill Wong stepped into the pub, looking utterly doomed the moment he spotted her. He had barely ordered his sandwich before half the bar converged. Bill, is Serena licensed? Have you run checks? What about that developer man? Gordon something? Bill raised his hands. This is my lunch break, not question time. Agatha folded her arms. A bit of transparency would be comforting, Bill. Oh, comforting, is it? That word from you? His smile was mild, but his eyes were sharp. All I'll say is Gordon Bryce has a history of ruthless deals. Nothing criminal, but plenty of complaints. Aha, Agatha said, pleased. So he's a shark. Not my term, Bill replied, biting into his sandwich. Mrs. Bloxby slipped into the group like a gentle breeze. Agatha, I heard about your fall during the workshop. I do hope you're not bruised. Agatha bristled. It wasn't a fall, it was a tilt. Serena said you showed admirable determination. Mrs. Bloxby smiled with saintly diplomacy. And she truly is remarkably peaceful. You might find it soothing to breathe more and shout less. Agatha stared, appalled. I shout only when necessary. Of course, dear, said Mrs. Bloxby, patting her arm with maddening serenity. Before Agatha could draft a rebuttal, Doris bustled in, cheeks flushed. You won't believe what I saw this morning, she announced. Gordon Bryce and Mabel Jarvis having the most awful argument by the village shop. Something about a footpath near Mindful Meadow. Gordon said she was blocking progress, and she told him to shove his progress where the sun doesn't shine. Good for Mabel, Agatha said at once. I've never trusted men who say progress in a loud voice. But Gordon isn't easily thwarted, murmured another villager. He always gets his way. A red herring danced charmingly before Agatha's imagination. Mabel, full of righteous fury, defending her beloved footpaths from developers. Still, Agatha sensed something more nuanced than a boundary dispute. Before the gossip cloud could settle, the postmistress, Miss Wills, breezed in and approached the bar. Serena, dear, you've another envelope, she called. Agatha's head whipped round. Serena had slipped in unnoticed and now sat quietly with a mug of tea, her posture straight, hands wrapped around the cup as though warming some inner lantern. She took the envelope with a small nod. No stamp, no return address. Shaky handwriting. Agatha watched keenly as Serena opened it. A faint smile touched her lips. She folded the paper and slipped it into her bag. What was that? Agatha asked, swooping like a hawk. Oh, just a message, Serena replied. Nothing of concern, which in Agatha's long experience meant something was most definitely of concern. Serena left moments later. The gossip barometer soared. Doris plucked the empty envelope from a nearby bin. Oh, she threw this away. She passed it to Agatha with the glee of a child delivering contraband. Agatha smoothed the paper. One line of text crawled across the page. Let us see how calm you are when the storm comes. Well, said Marjorie, blanching, that's not what you want before lunch. It's probably a joke, suggested someone weakly. A joke? Agatha scoffed. In shaky handwriting, anonymous threats never have good penmanship. Bill attempted to retrieve the note, but Agatha held it out of reach. Evidence, Bill. You should be thanking me for safe handling. I'd be thanking you more if you didn't meddle with it, Bill said, though not without affection. Bring it by later, please. Agatha rolled the words over in her head. Storm. Calm. Someone clearly disliked Serena more than Mabel disliked Gordon. She wasn't sure why this pleased her, perhaps because it confirmed her suspicion that Serena's calm was unnatural, or because nothing made Agatha feel more focused than the scent of possible danger. As the lunchtime crowd thinned, Mrs. Bloxby touched her arm. Try to be kind about Serena, Agatha. She seems a sincere woman. Sincere people irritate me, Agatha said. They leave no room for improvement. Mrs. Bloxby gave a soft laugh. You may find Serena surprises you. I prefer people predictable. It saves time. The vicar's wife raised an eyebrow. Agatha, dear, you are the least predictable person in Carsley. Agatha harumphed but secretly enjoyed the compliment. She left the pub with the threatening note tucked safely in her handbag. The afternoon light softened the honey-coloured cottages, though Agatha barely noticed. Her mind was occupied by Serena's faint smile, the envelope's tremor, and the peculiar satisfaction of a mystery taking root. At home, Hodge greeted her with indifference. Several more leaflets lay scattered where he had kicked them earlier, as though staging a protest against tranquility. She picked one up again, studying Serena's serene expression. "Something is going on beneath your aromatherapy," Agatha murmured. Hodge batted at the corner of the leaflet, unimpressed by serenity in any form. Agatha hung her coat, straightened a picture frame, and eyed the bottle of wine she'd chosen for the mindful supper. She would arrive stylishly. She would observe everything, and she would not, absolutely not, be caught tilting again. The kettle clicked on. Hodge leapt onto his chair, curling into a loaf of disapproval. Agatha poured her tea, her mood brightening. A storm might indeed be coming, but she intended to greet it wearing her best shoes. "Charles, if you've come to mock me, I warn you I'm fully armed," Agatha snapped as she strode toward the Mindful Meadow entrance. Her sharpest outfit, sleek black dress, fitted coat, heels that meant business, clicked a steady warning across the gravel. She refused to be caught in leggings ever again. Charles Fraith, leaning elegantly against his convertible, smiled with insolent charm. "I never mock, Aggie. I observe. Besides, you'll need someone to stop you fighting the tofu." "I don't fight tofu," she muttered. "I dislike it quietly." The retreat buildings glowed with soft lamps, the converted barns arranged around a courtyard that smelled faintly of candles and something herbal. It was all alarmingly pretty, which only made Agatha more suspicious. Inside, social tension simmered like an overfull kettle. Gordon Bryce dominated the long table, booming about investments and opportunity. "Tofu and tempeh, ladies. If you don't know the difference, you're behind the times." Lorna Bryce, seated 3 places down, stared at him with icily controlled loathing. She refused wine and held her posture stiffly, as if any relaxation might imply forgiveness. Neville Pratt hovered near the service table and tea tray, fussing over paperwork and glancing repeatedly at the place cards without actually moving them. His spectacles slid repeatedly down his nose, and he dabbed his forehead with a handkerchief that seemed to wilt more with each dab. Mabel Jarvis arrived last, slamming her coat over a chair. "I'm only here to keep an eye on this nonsense," she announced. "I don't trust herbs. They're always up to something." Agatha smirked. Mabel might prove useful. Serena Dove glided forward, a portrait of composed warmth. "Welcome, everyone. Let's join in one breath before our meal. It helps us enter the evening with intention." "I prefer to enter it with gin," Agatha muttered. Charles nudged her. "Be good, Aggie." She was attempting to look as though she didn't care when Lorna's voice drifted across the table in a stage whisper. "That Raisin woman always looks as though she's been poured into her clothes with a funnel." Agatha's jaw clenched. Charles nearly choked, trying not to laugh. Serena rang a small bell. Eyes closed. Inhale gently. Release tension. Agatha peeked one eye open. Everyone else seemed blissfully compliant. Even Charles indulged the moment, though his expression suggested he was imagining something wickedly unspiritual. When the exercise ended, the table came alive with chatter. Organic dishes appeared, all looking suspiciously beige. Agatha poked at a quinoa salad and winced. "Bird food," she whispered. Charles leaned in. "At least it's not moving." Through the meal, Agatha kept an eye on Serena. The retreat leader moved quietly among the guests, touching shoulders, adjusting napkin placements, offering soft encouragement. But every so often, Agatha noticed Serena repositioning cups. Gordon eyed her suspiciously. "What's wrong with my tea, woman?" "Nothing," Serena replied calmly. "But I've made a special blend for you. Decaffeinated. Better for the heart." Neville stiffened noticeably. Lorna pushed her cup away with cool disdain. Mabel muttered, "Foxglove and old wives' tales, that's what all these herbs are." Agatha filed it all away. A clue here, a motive there. Serena's calm, Neville's nerves, Lorna's bitterness, Mabel's distrust. A whole salad bowl of possible suspects. Charles raised his wine. "To serenity," he announced cheerfully. Gordon snorted. "To profit, more like." The room thinned into uneasy laughter. Serena stepped forward. "Let us pause again for a mindful moment." She dimmed the lights until the barn became a soft blur. "Close your eyes. Breathe in ease. Breathe out tension." The small bell chimed. Agatha closed her eyes reluctantly, mostly out of pride. The darkness pressed softly around them. Chairs creaked. Someone shifted. A faint clink of crockery drifted through the room. Then, a thud, sharp, heavy, completely at odds with the supposed tranquility. Agatha's eyes flew open. Around her, startled faces blinked into the low light. Serena hurried to the switch and brought the lamps up. Gordon Bryce lay slumped over his plate, face grey, mouth slack. His hand dangled off the table. Fingers curled as though still gripping a rant. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Lorna gasped, a soft sound torn from somewhere guarded. Neville stumbled backward into a chair. Mabel's mutter died mid-syllable. Serena's calm did not crack. "Please step back. We need space." Her voice carried authority, steady, crisp, trained. "Charles, clear the area by his shoulders. Neville, call for an ambulance. Agatha, if you would steady Lorna." Agatha, startled by being addressed so directly, guided Lorna to a chair. The woman's breath shook imperceptibly. Serena checked Gordon's pulse, her movements efficient. No responsiveness. "We maintain space around him, please." Agatha's heartbeat thudded in her ears. She studied the half-finished cups. The place cards shifted slightly out of alignment. Serena's silver kettle resting innocently near the tea tray. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. Neville's voice trembled as he spoke into the phone. "It's Gordon Bryce." "Yes, yes, at Mindful Meadow. Please hurry." The minutes until the ambulance arrived felt strangely suspended, like standing inside a bell jar. No one ate. No one moved except Serena, who directed calmly, reassuring even as panic rippled through the room. When the medics finally declared Gordon dead, Charles exhaled slowly. Lorna folded her arms tightly as if holding herself together. Mabel muttered, "Well, that's that then," though her voice lacked its usual bite. Neville sat hunched over, staring at the table as if numbers might save him. Serena thanked the medics with quiet professionalism, her expression unreadable. As sirens faded into the evening, Agatha's eyes drifted back to Serena. Not a hair out of place, not a tremor, and beside a corpse, no less. Agatha felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. No one, she thought, should look that calm at a moment like this. Later, when the guests drifted out in scattered, pale clusters, Agatha lingered at the threshold. Charles joined her, hands in pockets. "Well," he murmured, "that certainly killed the mood." "Charles, please," she snapped, though the corner of her mouth twitched. He studied her. "You're thinking." "Yes," she said, "and I don't like what I'm thinking." "Which is?" "That Serena Dove," Agatha whispered, "is far too calm to be innocent." Back at her cottage, the lamps glowed softly through the windows. Hodge appeared in the hallway like a small, judgmental sentinel, tail flicking. Agatha closed the door, leaning against it for a moment. Then she scooped up Hodge, burying her face briefly in his fur. "There was a death tonight," she murmured, "and I'm going to find out what happened. Calm or no calm." Hodge yawned pointedly, unimpressed by murder or meditation. Agatha set him down, and the kettle clicked on of its own accord, the familiar sound settling her nerves. She poured herself a cup, hands warming around the mug. Somewhere outside, Carsley breathed quietly in the dark. But inside it was just Agatha, Hodge, and the faint unease that had followed her home from Mindful Meadow. A corpse, a calm woman, and a mystery steeping faster than her tea. "Bill, if you've come to accuse me of overreacting, turn around now," Agatha snapped the moment she opened her front door. She had not slept well. Murder never sat lightly on her nerves, particularly when committed under the banner of mindfulness. Bill Wong stood on her doorstep holding a notepad, expression torn between duty and amused resignation. "I'm actually here to take a formal statement, but thank you for the warm welcome." Hodge padded in, inspected Bill's shoes with deep suspicion, then wandered off, tail flicking in subtle judgment. Agatha marched to the sitting room, stiff with irritation. "I suppose you want the whole evening in detail, though it's obvious who did it." Bill followed, setting his notebook on his knee. "We don't assume these things, Agatha." "You should. Serena Dove is unnaturally calm. It's incriminating." Bill exhaled slowly. "Being calm is not a crime." "It should be," Agatha muttered. She sat, crossing her legs tightly. "Now then, Gordon slumped during that ridiculous mindful pause. 1 minute we were breathing, the next he was face down in tofu. Surely that tells you something, Bill scribbled patiently. What it tells me is that Gordon suffered cardiac distress, and the initial medical assessment suggests the attack may not have been natural. Agatha perked up, triumphant. Aha! Poison. I knew it. Possibly, Bill said, which is why we're treating the death as suspicious. And Serena is the culprit, Agatha declared. She was moving cups. I saw her. Bill looked up. Agatha, Serena has been extremely cooperative. She provided guest lists, timings, even noted Gordon's medical issues. She has a background in hospital counseling. She's trained not to panic. Agatha stiffened. So now calmness is a qualification? It's unnatural. People should panic during murder. Some people manage stress differently, Bill said gently. She hated that tone, kindly, reasonable, as though dealing with a stubborn child. She straightened her shoulders. Well, I shall prove she's hiding something. Bill closed his notebook. Just tell me everything you saw. Leave the proving to us. She gave him the full account, including every suspicious glance, every cup movement, every herbal whisper. Bill nodded, occasionally making small noises of acknowledgement that felt more like placation than respect. When the interview ended, Mrs. Bloxby knocked politely and entered with a basket of scones. I hope I'm not intruding. Perfect timing, Bill said, quickly escaping. Agatha eyed him darkly. Coward. Mrs. Bloxby settled beside her. I came to check how you're feeling. It must have been dreadful. Agatha sighed. I'm fine. But really, that woman, Serena, she floats about like a saint. It's infuriating. Sometimes calm is earned, not suspicious, Mrs. Bloxby murmured. Some people cultivate it. Agatha scoffed. I cultivate roses. You don't see me floating. Mrs. Bloxby's lips twitched. Agatha, dear, consider that not every collected person is hiding a crime. And consider, Agatha countered, that some are hiding everything. Mrs. Bloxby patted her hand. Just keep an open mind. Agatha's mind, however, closed stubbornly around Serena Dove like a padlock. Still, certain details from the supper pricked her thoughts. Only a few guests had drunk Serena's special infusion, most kept to wine, or in Mabel's case, suspicious muttering. Neville had hovered near the tea tray before the lights dimmed, fidgeting like a man guarding a guilty secret. And Lorna, cold, immaculate, had left the room briefly for a phone call just before the breathing exercise began. Agatha paced her living room, reliving the evening piece by piece. Someone switched cups, she muttered. Someone took advantage of that ridiculous mindful pause. Village gossip reached her via Doris before noon. Some folks say Gordon had it coming, Doris said breathlessly when she dropped by with ironing. Others say Mindful Meadow is cursed, and Mabel swears she saw strange lights over Serena's herb garden last night. Strange lights, Agatha said sharply. Glowing, flickering, like ghosts or maybe a torch. Mabel thinks hedgehogs glow if they're fed organic vegetables, Agatha said, yet filed the detail carefully. Red herring or not, oddness rarely walked alone. Doris leaned in conspiratorially. I don't mean to pry. Yes, you do, Agatha said. Well, Lorna looked furious leaving the supper, and Neville was shaking like jelly, and Serena, well, she just looked sorrowful. Calm, but sorrowful. Always calm, Agatha muttered. It's unnatural. Charles arrived that afternoon, breezing in like a man who had spent several hours pretending to work. Aggie, darling, do you want the latest gossip? Gordon had debts all over Mercester. Agatha's eyes gleamed. Debts are motives. Indeed, and I hear his ex-wife stands to gain something, though not much from whatever's left. Agatha tapped her chin. And Neville? Did he look like a man relieved or terrified? Both, Charles said. He always looks like he's halfway to fainting. Agatha sighed dramatically. The police will never untangle this mess. We must infiltrate. I need you to attend another workshop session with me. Charles blinked. Why me? Because you have charm, and a smug face that suggests you invest in unusual things. Charles smiled. Flattery accepted. What's my cover story? You're a prospective investor, interested in serenity branding. My soul recoils, Charles said, but I accept on one condition. What? You buy me dinner afterwards. Something edible. Done, Charles gave an elegant bow. "Lead on, Commander." The workshop was scheduled for the next afternoon. Agatha dressed in what she hoped looked casual yet in command, though her nerves were sharp with purpose. But first she needed information. She drove to the edge of Castley and parked opposite Mindful Meadow. The retreat looked peaceful, all buttery stone and folded lawns. Too peaceful. Agatha smelled deception, or maybe lavender, which she instinctively distrusted. Serena stepped outside the barn, straight-backed and smooth-faced, speaking quietly to a departing guest. Her silhouette, framed by gentle lamplight, radiated poise. Agatha narrowed her eyes. "You're hiding something," she whispered. Serena turned slightly, as though hearing the thought. The faintest smile touched her lips before she disappeared inside again. Agatha sat in her car for several minutes, tapping the steering wheel with growing determination. The case was opening like a bud, slowly, petal by petal, revealing something secret, something careful, something wrapped in herbal tea and serene nonsense. She would crack that serene mask if it took every ounce of indignation she possessed. When she returned home, Hodge was sprawled across her armchair like a furry monarch. He blinked, unimpressed, as she entered. "Well?" Agatha demanded. "Do you believe that woman is innocent?" Hodge yawned extravagantly, rolled over and went to sleep. Agatha glared. Useless creature. Still, his calmness brought a faint, reluctant smile to her face. She put the kettle on, resisting the urge to pace again. Cup in hand, she stood by the window overlooking Castley's familiar cottages. Somewhere out there, a murderer moved quietly, counting on serenity to mask secrets. Agatha lifted her chin. "We'll see about that." Hodge stretched luxuriously, as though punctuating her vow with feline confidence. Agatha sipped her tea, warmed by the domestic stillness. In the soft hush of the cottage, her determination hardened pleasantly. Tomorrow she would push further, and Serena Dove would not stay serene forever. "Charles, if you sigh that loudly again, I shall throttle you with a yoga strap," Agatha hissed as they entered the Mindful Meadow barn. She had dressed in what she deemed athletic chic, black trousers, fitted top, hair aggressively disciplined. Charles, infuriatingly elegant, wore a soft jumper that made him look like a wealthy poet forced into community service. "I'm only sighing because serenity bores me," he replied, "and because I'm hungry. These people starve you into enlightenment." "Then achieve enlightenment quickly," Agatha muttered. The morning session was already underway. Serena sat cross-legged before a semicircle of guests, her voice warm, measured, and maddeningly serene. "Let the breath move like a soft tide." Agatha lowered herself to the mat with stiff dignity. Charles dropped beside her with theatrical resignation. The room fell into hush. Soft music chimed. Serena's voice drifted like smoke. "Breathe into your center." At that precise moment, Agatha's stomach released a long, hollow growl, a sound with the tragic drama of a wounded cow. Several guests jumped. Charles bent double, shoulders shaking with silent laughter. Serena, to her credit, only paused for a heartbeat before continuing. Agatha glared at Charles. "I told you not to sigh." "That wasn't me," he whispered. "That was your inner beast." "Shut up." They attempted meditation again. 5 minutes later, during a guided visualization, Charles fell asleep outright. His snore, soft at first, then blooming into a gentle rumble, floated above the soothing harp music. 2 guests opened their eyes. 1 tittered. Serena did not break composure, though a flicker of amusement touched her mouth. Agatha jabbed Charles with her elbow. He snorted awake, blinking with injured dignity. "This is torture," he whispered. "Good," Agatha muttered. "Suffer." After an eternity of controlled breathing, the session ended. Serena invited everyone to stretch and move into the courtyard for tea. Agatha seized Charles's arm. "Right, we're investigating." "I'd hoped we were escaping." She dragged him through a back corridor, past a row of neatly stacked cushions, toward a small office whose door stood slightly ajar. Agatha peeked in. Neville Pratt sat hunched over a desk buried in receipts, ledgers, and a calculator that looked exhausted by his existence. His expression suggested a man permanently one mistake away from collapse. "Mr. Pratt," Charles exclaimed cheerfully, sweeping in before Neville could protest. "We're terribly impressed with the retreat." "We are?" Agatha murmured. "We'd love to know more about your financial plans," Charles continued, his tone silky. "Expansion, income streams, Future investments? Neville paled. Oh, well, we're very comfortable. Perfectly solvent. Absolutely thriving. Sweat blossomed ominously at his temples. Agatha's eyes scanned the room. A ledger shoved hastily into a drawer, its last page torn. A petty cash tin's usual shelf conspicuously empty. Receipts spilling from a folder labelled Projected Retreat Accounts. She lifted an eyebrow. Busy morning? Neville gave a strangled laugh. Just tidying. Charles leaned casually against the desk. And Gordon Bryce's promised investment must have been a relief. That, well, he hadn't finalised. There were outstanding forms. Neville's voice shrank to a whimper. So, not quite the windfall hoped for, Charles said pleasantly. Neville dabbed his forehead. Excuse me, I should check the tea. He practically fled the office. Agatha wasted no time. She yanked open the drawer. Half-torn last page, she murmured. Missing tin, messy receipts. Charles, this man isn't cooking vegetables, he's cooking books. Charles scanned the page. Dear Aggie, if this is his bookkeeping, I'm amazed the retreat still stands. She replaced everything exactly as it had been. Carelessness can be revealing. They rejoined the group in the courtyard, where Serena was greeting guests with composed warmth. Somewhere nearby, a kettle boiled. Birds chirped. A sense of tranquility pressed annoyingly against Agatha's nerves. As she approached the tea table, she overheard low voices around the corner. She motioned to Charles and eased closer. Neville's breathy tone drifted through the doorway. We can't survive without Gordon's backing. You know that. Serena replied, voice firm but kind. Neville, we don't need franchising. That isn't why I built this place. Peace must remain sincere. Sincere? Neville whispered fiercely. Sincerity doesn't pay staff. Agatha's eyebrows shot up. Serena sounded almost principled. It irritated her immensely. A murderer should not sound principled. Charles whispered, So perhaps she isn't the criminal mastermind you hope. Hush, Agatha snapped. They were forced to reappear before suspicion arose. Serena turned to them, her poise unbroken. Will you both join us for lunch? Gladly, Charles said before Agatha could object. We're immersing ourselves. Drowning ourselves, Agatha muttered. Lunch was served on long wooden tables under soft lanterns. Several guests looked nervous, eyeing cups and herbs with suspicion. Mabel Jarvis made no attempt to hide her distrust. Those herbs killed Gordon, she declared. Mark my words, poisoned by a posy. Mabel, Serena began. Don't Mabel me, she snapped. You keep foxglove in your garden. It's ornamental, Serena said calmly. I label all medicinal plants clearly. You label nothing clearly, Mabel muttered, except your intentions. Charles leaned down to Agatha. She'll have a stroke before the herbs get her. That woman is a walking accusation, Agatha said. Useful, though. Serena invited guests to inspect the herb beds after lunch. Indeed, everything was labelled neatly, including foxglove, tucked behind a row of lavender. Serena explained its ornamental purpose. Several attendees still looked queasy. Charles murmured, You do know foxglove is a powerful heart drug. Yes, Agatha whispered, which makes Mabel right about something, and that's deeply unsettling. After lunch, as the group dispersed, a sudden commotion rose near the meditation cabin. A young woman stood trembling, tears streaming down her cheeks. I can't breathe, she sobbed. Everything is spinning. Serena was beside her in moments, guiding her to a bench. Sit here, hands on your knees, listen to my voice. Agatha watched, grudgingly impressed. Serena spoke in low, comforting tones, helping the girl ease into slower breaths. Within minutes the crisis passed. The other guests stared in admiration. Even Agatha's irritation wavered. Charles whispered, Not the profile of a murderer. People contain multitudes, Agatha muttered. Some contain bodies. Serena returned, composed as ever. Thank you for being part of today's work, she said warmly. It means a lot. Agatha felt an unexpected flicker of guilt. She quickly extinguished it. We'll be back, she said, sharper than intended. Serena merely bowed her head. Peace be with you. That phrase, floating gently toward her, set Agatha's teeth on edge. They walked toward the car park. Charles stretched lazily. Well, Aggie, what have we learned? That serenity masks secrets, Agatha said. Neville's hiding finances, Mabel's hiding fury. Serena's hiding something I can't quite name. Perhaps she's hiding nothing, Charles suggested. Agatha snorted. No one hides nothing. It's unnatural. They reached her car. She paused, glancing back at the retreat. Serena stood at the barn entrance, framed by soft light. Her posture was steady, almost monastic. Agatha narrowed her eyes. Money is the key, Charles, not mindfulness. Then we follow the money, he said. Yes, she murmured, and cracked that serene smile wide open. When she returned home, the cottage felt comfortingly familiar. Hodge greeted her with a pointed meow, annoyed at her late arrival. He leapt onto her armchair, claiming it before she could. Agatha set down her handbag, kicked off her shoes, and filled the kettle. Busy day, she muttered to Hodge. Breathing, books, fraud, herbs, and Charles being useless as usual. Hodge stretched luxuriously as though approving her summary. The kettle sighed. Agatha poured her tea and sank into the chair opposite her cat. The retreat might preach calm, but she preferred determination and mischief. Tomorrow would bring more clues, and Serena Dove would face her scrutiny again. Mrs. Hardy, if you tear down one more leaflet, I shall staple you to the notice board instead, Agatha snapped, marching across the WI hall with all the authority of an indignant general. The meeting had barely begun, and the atmosphere already crackled with passive-aggressive fury. Mrs. Hardy drew herself up. We cannot advertise commercial therapy in a community hall. It cheapens the WI. The vicar's wife countered. Supporting local businesses is neighbourly, Joyce, and Serena is hardly commercial. She's offering wellness. Exactly, Mrs. Hardy replied, selling peace by the hour. Agatha sensed opportunity. Well, I don't imagine business will thrive while a murder investigation hangs over Mindful Meadow. The room fell silent. Heads swiveled. A few women gasped. Doris dropped her knitting needles. Serena Dove, who had slipped quietly into the hall moments earlier, absorbed the comment without so much as a flinch. She folded her hands calmly, a gesture that irritated Agatha more than any outburst could. My presence here, Serena said softly, is only to reassure. I understand the village has concerns. Mrs. Hardy sniffed. Concerns? A man died at your supper. Serena inclined her head. Yes, and I'm cooperating fully with the police. Agatha's internal irritation rose sharply. Why was Serena so poised? Why wasn't she rattled? Why couldn't she, just once, react like a normal accused person, with visible nerves and perhaps a tremor? Doris jumped in, breathless with sudden gossip. Speaking of concerns, I almost forgot. My niece, Clara, was cornered in Evesham by Gordon Bryce last week. Tried to persuade her to invest her savings in some ground-floor wellness scheme. Would have got her too, if Lorna hadn't turned up. Murmurs rippled across the hall. Agatha narrowed her eyes. Lorna rescued her? Oh yes, Doris said. Launched into Gordon like a terrier. Terrible scene, apparently. Clara said pedestrians were staring. This was interesting. Rage and history between Gordon and Lorna. Useful tension. Agatha wasted no time. Doris, get Clara's number for me, and her version of events. First hand. Mrs. Bloxby quietly touched Agatha's elbow. Perhaps speak to Lorna directly, dear. Clara is rather dramatic. Agatha nodded. Dramatic is good. Dramatic remembers details. After the contentious meeting adjourned, Mrs. Hardy victorious in banning leaflets except those placed on the far left cork strip, Agatha and Mrs. Bloxby marched to Lorna Bryce's cottage. Lorna answered the door wearing a precisely arranged expression, cool, controlled, ready for battle. If you've come to accuse me again, Agatha, save your breath. I never accuse without reason, Agatha said indignantly, pushing past her into the sitting room, which I now have. Mrs. Bloxby soothed the intrusion with a gentle smile. We simply want clarity. Lorna folded her arms. Fine. Gordon tried conning that poor girl. Promised ridiculous returns. I intervened. I didn't kill him, if that's what you're circling. Agatha perched on the edge of the sofa. But you were furious. Yes, Lorna said evenly. Rage is not murder. Mrs. Bloxby added gently, would you tell us about Gordon's health? Doris mentioned something. Lorna sighed. He had a weak heart, depended on medication, claimed Serena's herbal blends helped his energy, but that was nonsense. He skipped pills when he felt invincible. Foolish man. But I would never poison him. Agatha observed the tightness around her eyes. Hurt, anger, regret. Complex, yes, but not murderous. At least not yet. They thanked Lorna and left. Outside, Agatha muttered, "So she didn't kill him." "No," Mrs. Blocksby agreed softly, though she had cause to be angry. Anger alone wasn't enough. Agatha needed something sharper. That evening, Bill arrived at Agatha's cottage with a tired smile and a folder tucked under his arm. "Peace offering," he said, "and crucial information." "If you're offering peace, you've picked the wrong house," Agatha replied. Bill settled on her sofa, flipping open the folder. Toxicology report. Gordon had digitalis in his system. Agatha's heart thumped. Foxglove? Yes, derived from it. Enough to trigger an arrhythmia in someone with his heart condition. Agatha sat up straighter, her mind racing. So anyone with access to foxglove or medical knowledge becomes a suspect. Bill nodded. Which includes Mabel with her garden full of the stuff. And Serena, Agatha said quickly. Her herb beds are practically a poison shop. And Lorna, Bill added. She knows about his medication. And Neville, Agatha said. He seems like the type to poison by accident. Or panic. Bill chuckled. Try not to accuse everyone, Agatha sniffed. I accuse where appropriate. Bill left shortly after, begging for Agatha to avoid interfering. She promised nothing. The next morning, Agatha decided to confront Mabel Jarvis directly. Mabel's cottage garden looked like a botanical rebellion. Foxgloves rose boldly among unruly shrubs, their purple bells swaying with quiet menace. Mabel met her at the gate, hands on hips. If you've come to lecture me about plants, I'll send you packing. I don't lecture, Agatha said. I question. You interrogate. Only when warranted, Mabel huffed. Fine. What's your complaint? Foxglove, Agatha said bluntly. Plenty of it, Mabel smirked. It's a beautiful plant, and I've grown it longer than you've lived in this village. Foxglove is poisonous. So are half the villagers, Mabel said. Doesn't make them murderers. Agatha pressed on. You know it well, and you loathe developers. Mabel's eyes flashed. Gordon Bryce was a blight on this land. But poisoning? I'm not some hedge witch mixing tinctures. If I wanted him gone, I'd have told him to his face. Agatha studied her. Blunt, sharp-edged, unapologetic, a perfect red herring. Neville Pratt, however, was a different matter. She found him at Mindful Meadow hunched over his desk again, shuffling receipts like a man hiding contraband. When Agatha entered, he jumped so violently his pen flew across the room. I didn't do anything, he squeaked. Calm yourself, Agatha said. You look guiltier every time I see you. Neville wrung his hands. I don't know plants. I can't even keep a cactus alive. Poison? Absolutely not. Yet you panic whenever money is mentioned. He swallowed hard. That's unrelated. Unrelated. Ha. Agatha left the retreat frustrated but energized. Motives everywhere, lies everywhere, calm serenity nowhere. By dusk she returned home and paused in her small garden. The foxgloves Mrs. Blocksby had gifted her last summer stood tall, their purple bells glowing faintly. She stepped closer, tracing a finger along the speckled interior of a blossom. Beautiful, harmless-looking, deadly. How easy, she murmured, to hide danger inside something pretty. Inside, Hodge stretched on the windowsill, yawning as though echoing her thoughts. Agatha sighed, feeling the quiet weight of mystery settle comfortably on her shoulders. Tomorrow, more answers. Tonight, suspicion and foxgloves kept her company. Agatha, darling, your village has finally made the national press. Roy Silver burst through her front door without knocking, trailing expensive cologne and dramatic panic. Do you realize how rare that is? And for something juicy for once, not a jam competition scandal. Agatha snatched the newspapers from his hand. The headline blared, Wellness Guru at Centre of Cotswold Death Mystery. She groaned. Oh, brilliant. Now London will think we hold murder retreats for entertainment. Roy flung himself onto her sofa. You should be grateful. This could be managed beautifully with the right PR guidance. Meaning you, Agatha said darkly. Precisely. And I'm here to rescue Serena Dove's reputation before the press rips her to shreds, and incidentally remind the world of my existence, a noble cause for all involved. Agatha folded her arms. I'm investigating a murder, Roy, Not running a media brunch. Roy brightened. Then combine them. A controlled environment. A listening circle. You host. Serena attends. Select villagers ask polite questions. Transparency. Healing. Press-free, of course. Agatha stared. You want the suspects in my cottage? Yes, Roy said cheerfully. You can observe everyone at once, and I'll manage the tone. It was irritatingly a good idea. Fine, she said, but I run the questions. Roy kissed the air near her cheek. Naturally, I'll handle the lighting. That evening, chaos arrived in layers. Serena was the first to appear, gliding into Agatha's cottage with calm grace, as though stepping into a meditation poster. Thank you for hosting, she said warmly. Agatha grudgingly waved her in. Sit wherever is least likely to be torn apart by villagers. Serena chose the sofa, posture impeccable, hands resting lightly in her lap. The serenity radiating from her was almost aggressive. Neville Pratt slunk in next, hovering by the door like a nervous moth. I'm only here because Roy insisted, he whispered. This isn't an interrogation, is it? Would you feel better if it were? Agatha replied. No. Then relax, or try. He did neither. Mabel arrived with the air of a woman ready for battle. I'm only here because someone needs to speak sense, she announced, shouldering past Neville, and to see what this meditation princess says when questioned properly. Serena smiled calmly. I welcome respectful dialogue. Mabel snorted. We'll see about respectful. Lorna Bryce entered last, late, elegant, and profoundly irritated. She removed her gloves with precise contempt. Roy swooped toward her like a colourful falcon. Lorna, darling, you look divine. Don't, she said sharply, brushing past him to sit far from everyone. Agatha rubbed her temples. Lovely. All we need is a referee and a fire exit. As if summoned by her despair, Bill Wong stepped through the doorway holding a basket of scones from Mrs. Bloxby. I heard there was a gathering, he said cautiously. I'm here to keep an eye on things. Bill? Roy exclaimed. Roy, perfect. Legal expertise. Bill put up both hands. No, absolutely not. I'm not answering anything remotely legal. Then answer something spiritual, Agatha said, like why this group makes my head hurt. Bill sighed and sat. Roy clapped dramatically. Right. Welcome to our listening circle for community harmony. Mabel muttered, This is already nonsense. Questions will be asked, Roy continued. Truth will be honoured, and hopefully nobody throws a scone. Serena inclined her head, serene as a pond. I'm grateful for the chance to reassure everyone. Agatha seized control. Let's start with something simple. Serena, tell us again about the tea Gordon drank. Serena folded her hands. He'd mentioned difficulty sleeping. I suggested a gentle blend with chamomile and hawthorn. I encouraged him to limit caffeine because of his heart, but I added nothing harmful. Mabel jabbed a finger. Except foxglove in your garden. Yes, Serena said calmly. In a labelled ornamental plot. Foxglove is dangerous. I would never use it medicinally. Agatha studied her. Not a flicker of defensiveness. Not a quiver. Maddening. Lorna cut in sharply. If you're hunting motives, look elsewhere. Gordon caused trouble wherever he went, and I certainly didn't kill him. No one said you did, Agatha said. Everyone thinks I did, Lorna retorted. But consider this, Gordon's life insurance. She glanced around the room. It only pays if his death was natural or accidental, not murder. Why would I benefit from making it look suspicious? This was significant. Roy even stopped adjusting the lampshade. Agatha leaned forward. So, a suspicious scenario would harm you more than help? Precisely, Lorna said. But did he think of that? No. He blustered about investments and threatened to blackmail me with bits of gossip. I was furious, yes, but I'm not an idiot. Neville cleared his throat anxiously. Some deaths look natural even when they're not, he murmured. Agatha pivoted. Speaking of things that are not natural, your accounting habits. Neville froze. I don't know what you mean. You told Charles and me the retreat was solvent, Agatha said, but then you panicked when we asked about expansion, and now you're twitching like a guilty squirrel. Neville tugged at his collar. It's unrelated. Unrelated to what? Mabel demanded. You hiding money? Neville squeaked. No, I'm just under pressure, Serena spoke gently. Neville manages difficult tasks under strain. Please be kind. Agatha pounced. "Neville, what was Gordon threatening to do the week he died?" The accountant blanched. He said he might look through the accounts, but that doesn't mean anything. People say things." Silence spread thickly over the room. Roy whispered, "Oh, that's good. That's very good. Scandal." Bill groaned. "Roy, this is not a press conference," Agatha continued. "So Gordon intended to investigate your books?" Neville wrung his hands. "Possibly. Maybe. Just a comment. He liked power games." "Or he found inconsistencies," Agatha said. Neville's voice cracked. "I never touched foxglove. I don't even know which plant it is." This at least seemed true. Agatha shifted her gaze to Serena. "You're our unnaturally calm suspect." Roy winced. "Aggie, darling, phrasing." "It's fine," Serena said, smiling faintly. "I know my nature alarms people, but calmness isn't concealment. It's practice." Agatha hated how reasonable that sounded. Mabel crossed her arms. "Calm or not, you were nearest the tea." Neville stood near the tea tray while the cups were being prepared, Serena said gently. "I handed Gordon his cup. Nothing more." More silence, heavy with implication. Bill interjected diplomatically. "Let's remember, we don't know when the poison was administered. It might not have been the tea." Agatha shot him a look. "Stop being helpful." The discussion unravelled into overlapping accusations, defensive monologues, muttered insults, and Roy repeatedly announcing, "This is excellent material," until Bill threatened to eject him. Finally, Serena rose gracefully. "Thank you for allowing me to answer your questions. I hope in time truth will bring peace." Mabel stood too. "Peace? I want justice." Lorna muttered, "I want quiet." Neville whispered, "I want to go home." Agatha wanted answers, but none had come easily. One by one they filed out into the night. Roy lingered, thrilled. "Agatha, darling, this has everything. Suspicion, resentment, financial intrigue. I could sell this as a 3-part special." "You'll sell nothing," she snapped. "Oh, I won't, but I could." He kissed the air and departed. Agatha closed the door and exhaled. The cottage felt blissfully empty after so much tension. Hodge stretched across her armchair, blinking slowly at her as if unimpressed by humanity. Agatha sank onto the opposite seat, rubbing her forehead. "Well," she muttered, "that accomplished nothing except making everyone look guilty." Hodge yawned. The kettle sighed from the kitchen, as though gently mocking her. Agatha padded over, filled her mug, and returned to the quiet room. Somewhere beneath all that calmness and chaos, the truth hid, and tomorrow, she vowed, she would drag it into the light. "Hodge, drop that!" Agatha shouted as her cat tore across the sitting room, dragging a long, crumpled streamer of paper like a triumphant parade marshal. He skidded under the table, claws catching the carpet, eyes glittering with mischief. Agatha lunged. "Give it here! It's not a toy, it's— Oh, Lord, what is this?" She wrestled the paper free before Hodge could chew the corner. It was thin, faintly printed, and unmistakably a fax. She squinted at the blurred header. "Inland Revenue, urgent tax query. Mr. Neville Pratt requested to provide immediate clarification. Unpaid liabilities. Risk of investigation." Agatha stiffened. "Hodge, darling, you've just brought me motive wrapped in bureaucracy." Hodge purred smugly, as though accepting applause. The fax header gave the sender and receiving number. The receiving number belonged to Mindful Meadow, meaning Neville had received this. Agatha's mind clicked back to the listening circle at her cottage. Neville hovering by the door, clutching papers like a frightened clerk, then leaving in a hurry. He must have shoved the fax into some harmless-looking pile or dropped it without noticing, and Hodge, blessed creature, had found it. Agatha grabbed her handbag. "Charles! We're confronting him." Charles arrived 20 minutes later, elegant coat, amused eyes. "You look murderous, Aggie. Delightful." "Look at this," she snapped, shoving the fax at him. Charles scanned it. "Oh dear. Neville's habit of sweating now makes absolute sense. He's been hiding tax trouble, and if Gordon had inspected the accounts, Neville would have been exposed." Charles smiled. "Shall we ruin his morning?" They arrived at Mindful Meadow to find Neville in his tiny office surrounded by paperwork, hair standing up like a frightened hedgehog. Agatha strode in, waving the fax. "Explain this." Neville turned grey. Oh no, where did you get that? From my cat, Agatha said triumphantly. Neville sagged. I didn't mean for anyone to see that. It's a misunderstanding, a temporary cash flow issue. You stole money, Agatha said. I borrowed, Neville squeaked. Only borrowed. Gordon promised expansion profits. I planned to put it back. He was supposed to sign off on everything. And if he'd examined the accounts, Agatha prompted. Neville shrank. He'd have had me arrested. So, you had motive, Charles said pleasantly. Neville's eyes bulged. No, I would never kill anyone. I faint at needles and large carrots. Agatha leaned closer. Digitalis is not a needle, Neville whimpered. I don't know foxglove from fennel. I truly don't. And I was nowhere near the tea that night. Serena asked me to manage lighting. That's all. Agatha narrowed her gaze. You've been hiding more than lighting, his voice cracked. I'm not a murderer. Serena appeared in the doorway, composed as ever. Agatha, Charles, this is unkind. Neville has been under immense pressure. Pressure doesn't absolve theft, Agatha snapped. No, Serena said softly, but it doesn't make him a killer. Neville burst into tears. Serena stepped in protectively. I think you both should go. Her voice was calm, but her gaze lingered a moment too long on the facts. Something thoughtful, something calculating. As Agatha and Charles walked back to the car, Charles murmured, She wasn't as serene as usual. No, Agatha said, something's shifting. The afternoon passed in a blur of deductions and annoyance. Agatha paced her cottage, mumbling theories. Charles lounged with tea, offering occasional suggestions. Near dusk, Agatha announced, I'm going back out. I need to clear my head and check something. Charles raised an eyebrow. Please try not to annoy any murderers. No promises, she said, grabbing her keys. She drove along a narrow, hedge-lined lane toward Evesham, mulling over motives. Neville's panic, Mabel's plant knowledge, Lorna's financial entanglement, Serena's impossibly smooth demeanour. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden lurch. The car jerked sharply, groaning like a wounded beast. Oh, don't you dare, she began. The brake pedal sank ominously. The car slid, slowly but inexorably, into a hedge. It was less dramatic crash, more undignified, shuffling collapse. Agatha swore with impressive fluency. A tractor approached at a steady trundle driven by a cheerful farmer. Bit of trouble? He called. Nothing serious, Agatha said. Mortified. Just losing a battle with a hedge. He hauled her out with practised ease. Brakes gone. Yes. Bill Wong's car pulled up moments later. Agatha realized with irritation that Bill had been in the area already, following up Gordon's Evesham connections. He got out and pinched the bridge of his nose. Agatha, what did you do? Nothing. The brakes failed. He crouched to inspect the wheel. This isn't wear and tear. Someone loosened a brake line. Agatha folded her arms tightly. Are you saying someone sabotaged my car? Yes, Bill said grimly, but the job was sloppy, more scare tactic than assassination attempt. Agatha bristled. Why would anyone want to scare me? Bill gave her a flat stare. Because you've spent the last few days antagonizing every suspect. Agatha opened her mouth, paused, and closed it again. Exactly, Bill said. A mechanic later confirmed the tampering. Agatha was allowed to drive home after assurances the car was safe to move at low speed. Back in Castley, Serena appeared at the retreat entrance as Agatha returned the courtesy call she'd planned earlier. I heard about your accident, she said gently. Are you well? I'm fine, Agatha replied stiffly, though someone meddled with my brakes. Serena clasped her hands. That's terrible, but please don't assume it was one of us. Charles, who had insisted on escorting her, muttered, Someone wanted to frighten Aggie. Not difficult, mind you. Agatha elbowed him. Serena continued. You know, Neville once worked in a garage. He's mechanically skilled. Agatha froze. He what? A few years ago, Serena added mildly, before the retreat. This was dropped so casually it almost drifted away. Almost. Agatha narrowed her eyes. Convenient information. Serena smiled faintly. Just being transparent. As they left, Charles murmured, Neville knows engines. Interesting. Too interesting, Agatha said. They drove back to Carsley, the evening deepening into a soft violet. Agatha turned onto her lane, the cottage peaceful, smoke curling from chimneys nearby. Then she spotted a shadow near her gate, Mabel Jarvis. She stood stiffly, arms folded, peering toward Agatha's windows like an annoyed crow. Agatha stormed out of the car. "Mabel, what are you doing skulking at my cottage?" Mabel jumped. "I wasn't skulking. I was checking whether you'd been won over by those wellness charlatans." "At my gate? In the dark?" "I'm thorough," Mabel said defensively. "You meddle. I supervise." Agatha folded her arms. "Did you loosen my brake line too?" "Of course not. Why would I risk prison for you? I just don't trust that retreat." Charles leaned toward Agatha. "She's bluffing too aggressively to be guilty." Agatha wasn't convinced, but Mabel stalked off with such indignant energy it was hard to picture her fiddling with brake systems. Inside the cottage, Agatha kicked off her shoes and stared through the window at her damaged car. Someone had decided she was dangerous. Someone had panicked. Someone had thought she needed warning. Hodge hopped onto the windowsill beside her, purring softly. Agatha sighed, touching his head. "Well, darling, seems we've crossed a line." The kettle clicked in the quiet kitchen. Agatha stood there, gazing at the faint dent in the car door, realizing the killer was no longer only concerned with retreat politics. Now, she was part of the problem, and they had just declared it. "Doris, if you drag your feet any slower, we'll be here until Michaelmas," Agatha snapped, marching across the WI hall with a clipboard clutched like a weapon. "We are reconstructing a murder, not waiting for your joints to warm." Doris Simpson, cheeks pink with effort and nerves, clutched a stack of mismatched cups. "I'm doing my best, Mrs. Raisin. It's a lot to remember." "Yes, well, memory is the only thing standing between us and incompetence," Agatha said. "Now start again, from the moment Serena dimmed the lights." Two other supper attendees, Mrs. Partridge and Lionel Turnham, hovered uneasily beside the long table Agatha had commandeered. A bell borrowed from the vicarage sat at the head of it, gleaming faintly like a smug conspirator. Charles lounged in a chair at the back, watching the proceedings with open amusement. "Aggie, this is very dramatic, even for you." "Hush," Agatha ordered. "Science is occurring." Charles murmured, "If this is science, I fear for the scientific community." Agatha clicked her pen. "Doris, walk your route." Doris inhaled and began shuffling around the table, placing cups, retrieving imaginary plates and weaving behind chairs. "I came up this side first, then went back because Mabel complained she hadn't any napkins." "She always complains," Lionel muttered. "And then the lights went dim," Doris continued. Serena said, "Close your eyes, quiet your breath." And I stepped into the kitchen for fresh spoons. Only half a minute. Agatha frowned. Half a minute is an eternity in murder. Mrs. Partridge shivered. "But please don't say that so cheerfully." Agatha ignored her. "Now, everyone sit. We recreate the mindful pause." Charles groaned. "You cannot possibly be serious." "Close your eyes," Agatha commanded. He sighed theatrically, but complied. Agatha dimmed the lights and rang the bell. The WI hall fell into soft shadow. "Now," she whispered, pacing like a restless wraith. During this 30 seconds, anyone could have leaned forward, switched cups, added a drop of poison. Mrs. Partridge jumped. "But I didn't." "No one is accusing you," Agatha said impatiently. "This is reconstruction, not prosecution." She watched the room carefully. Even in pretend darkness, people shifted. Chairs creaked, feet shuffled, someone sniffed. Half a minute of mild chaos. Enough time for opportunity. When Agatha flicked the lights on again, Doris blinked owlishly. It felt longer than 30 seconds. "Exactly," Agatha scribbled notes. A clever killer could use a moment of communal blindness. Charles raised a hand. "Aggie, darling, your theory requires Neville to leave his accounts and cross the room unseen." "Yes," she said, "which is why I'm testing it." She turned to Lionel. "You were nearest Neville that night. Did he move during the dimming?" Lionel frowned thoughtfully. "No, he was still at the accounts table fussing with paper. I heard him sighing about numbers." Charles snorted. "Neville sighs about everything." "So," Agatha said, tapping her pen, "Neville's opportunity was limited." Doris nodded eagerly. "He stayed by the service table and tea tray the entire time, only approaching the table after the lights came back up." Agatha paced slowly. "Fine. That eliminates, or at least reduces, one suspect." Charles murmured. "You sound disappointed." "I sound thorough." Her next stop was Bill Wong, who met her at the station later that afternoon with new findings. "The poison wasn't in the pot," he said, "only in Gordon's cup. Highly targeted." "A precise killer," Agatha murmured. "Which rules out Mabel. She'd dose everyone just to be fair." Bill gave her a withering look. "Agatha, please stop antagonizing my suspects." "They're our suspects," she corrected. "Not officially," he said, handing her a paper. "This confirms the poison was applied individually, likely during the darkened pause." She felt a jolt of triumph. "I knew it." "But be careful," Bill warned. "Reconstruction or not, you're getting under people's skin." "Good," Agatha said. "People reveal truth when irritated." Bill sighed. "Sometimes they also sabotage brake lines." Agatha waved this away. "A mere inconvenience." Bill stared at her. "Agatha, your sense of danger is broken." She smiled sweetly. "That's why you love me." "I said nothing of the sort." She left him flustered, which she considered a small victory. Back in Carsley, Mrs. Bloxby invited her for tea. "I've been speaking with Serena," she said gently. Agatha tensed. "What sort of speaking?" "Kind speaking," Mrs. Bloxby replied. "You might try it one day." Agatha ignored the jab. Mrs. Bloxby poured tea and sat. Serena worked in a busy London hospital. She counselled families after traumatic accidents. She was trained to remain calm no matter what. It became a habit. "A suspicious habit," Agatha muttered. Mrs. Bloxby shook her head. "She had a breakdown years ago from overwork. It wasn't scandalous, it was exhaustion. She rebuilt her life here. That calmness, it's armour." Agatha frowned. "Armour?" "Some people harden, others soften." Serena steadied herself. Agatha didn't want to feel sympathy. Sympathy muddied investigation. Sympathy suggested possible innocence. Still, something shifted. "So she isn't hiding guilt," Agatha said reluctantly. "She's hiding hurt." Mrs. Bloxby smiled softly. "Perhaps." This forced Agatha back to her suspect list. Neville, financial motive, mechanical skill, panicked demeanour. Lorna, fury and tangled finances, but insurance logic weakened her motive. Mabel, plant knowledge, land passion, but bluntly honest. Serena, still suspicious by posture, if not by logic. Agatha sighed. "This case is stubborn." "Like someone I know," Mrs. Bloxby said kindly. Later that evening, Agatha visited Mindful Meadow again, determined to interrogate architecture, footpaths, people, anything. She found Serena sitting alone on the retreat steps, elbows on knees, posture bent for the first time. Not serene, not polished, quiet. Agatha hesitated, which annoyed her. She preferred confrontation to feeling. Serena looked up. "Agatha, is everything well?" "No," Agatha replied truthfully. "Someone tampered with my car earlier today." Serena's expression tightened in genuine alarm. "That's awful. Are you hurt?" "Only my pride," Agatha said. "And my hedge." Serena gave a faint, tired smile. "I'm glad you're safe." Agatha sat stiffly beside her. "So, your retreat, your future. Explain." Serena took a slow breath. "I built this place after I left the hospital. It was meant to be small, quiet, meaningful. Gordon wanted expansion, franchises, profits, chains everywhere. I refused. Then he suggested withdrawing his support altogether." Agatha blinked. "I thought you just wanted calm vibes and herbal tea." Serena laughed softly. "I want to help people feel less broken. That doesn't scale well." She rubbed her hands, the mask slipping. "Now Gordon is gone. People whisper. The retreat is tainted. I fear it will die with him." Agatha stiffened. Emotional confessions unsettled her. "Well, things die all the time. Gardens, trends, relationships." Serena didn't look insulted. "I don't want this to die, Agatha." Agatha coughed, uncomfortable. "Yes, well, not everything that looks suspicious is suspicious." Serena met her gaze. "Do you think I killed him?" Agatha opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I don't know yet." "But you're trying," Serena said gently, "and whatever you find, I accept." This honesty felt heavier than deflection ever had. Agatha stood abruptly. "Right, enough confessions. I must rethink the order of poisoners." Serena nodded. Be safe. Agatha strode back to her car, irritated by her own softening. At home, Hodge was sprawled across her favourite chair, tail twitching like a metronome. He gave her a single, unimpressed blink. Agatha sat opposite him, watching dusk settle over her small garden. The foxgloves, beautiful, elegant, dangerous, swayed faintly through the window. Everyone looks guilty, she muttered. Everyone looks innocent. People are maddening. Hodge stretched, toes splayed, and yawned grandly. Agatha sighed. Yes, darling. Tomorrow we sought truth from tranquility. The kettle clicked quietly in the kitchen. Soft, steady, comforting. Agatha closed her eyes for a moment, letting calm settle only where it was earned. Agatha stabbed a finger at the map on her table. We're going to Evesham, Charles. Lorna's been dodging me. Her tone carried the brisk energy of someone who believed determination alone could bend fate to her preference. Charles, lounging against the dresser, raised an eyebrow. You say that as though Evesham's the Riviera, he said. Still, I suppose a change of scene might fortify me, and I want lunch. You always want lunch, Agatha snapped, grabbing her handbag. Come on. The drive was typical of their excursions. Charles offered lazy commentary on passing cottages, while Agatha rehearsed cutting questions. By the time they reached Lorna Bryce's dress shop, she was vibrating with purpose. The bell above the door tinkled as they stepped into a world of sequins, sensible skirts, and the faint scent of lavender sachets. Lorna looked up from steaming a blouse. Oh, you. We need a word, Agatha said, about Gordon and about money. The blouse hissed. Lorna's face tightened. You always were direct. Life's short, Agatha replied, and his was shorter. Charles inspected a rail of glittering cardigans with faux interest. Lorna set the steamer aside and folded her arms. All right, she said. What do you want to know? Your finances, Agatha said bluntly. Your husband's insurance, the state of things before he died. Lorna sighed. I suppose the village is already gnawing on it. Fine. Gordon sank most of our assets into that ridiculous wellness empire. He believed he'd double everything in a year. Instead, he bled us dry. I kept the shop going, barely. And the insurance? Agatha asked. Heavily, Lorna settled onto a stool. Mortgage to the hilt. I wouldn't get rich, just solvent. And it won't pay if this becomes murder. Her voice tightened. Whatever you think of me, Agatha, I wouldn't sabotage my own survival. Agatha studied her sharply. The bitterness was real, but so was despair. Charles drifted close. Did Gordon ever mention checking the retreat accounts? He asked lightly. Lorna snorted. He was obsessed with it. Said Neville had creative bookkeeping. Complained non-stop. If he'd lived another week, he'd have gutted that office. A pulse of interest flickered in Agatha's chest. She thanked Lorna, who returned to the steamer with stiff shoulders and tired eyes. As they left, Charles murmured, If misery were motive, half Carsley would be in handcuffs. Don't distract me, Agatha snapped, though her own sympathy unsettled her. Motives were messy things, and desperation cut several ways. Back home, Agatha hauled Doris Simpson into her kitchen. We're reconstructing the supper, Agatha announced. Every chair, every cup, every silly breathing instruction. Sit. Doris blinked nervously, arms full of a rolled-up seating plan. I've got the sketch here, Mrs. Raisin. Good. Spread it out. They cleared the table. Hodge immediately planted himself squarely in the centre of the paper, tail flicking with proprietary confidence. Get off that, Agatha ordered. Hodge blinked, unimpressed, and shifted only enough to smear one corner with a lazy paw. Never mind him, Doris said anxiously. I remember most of it. With your memory, Agatha retorted, but she softened the edge. Just tell me what you saw. Doris traced the diagram with trembling fingers. Gordon sat here. Serena next, Neville opposite, Lorna there near the peg with her shawl. When the lights dimmed, she stood up to fetch it. And pass behind Gordon, Agatha pressed. Oh yes, Doris said. I remember hearing a little clink near his plate. Thought it was just his fork. Agatha's gaze sharpened. A clink, a shawl, a dim room. Little things mattered. Charles wandered in, having helped himself to biscuits. Fascinating, he said. Shall I fetch the bell for the full ambience? Do, Agatha said. I need authenticity. Charles returned with the vicar's borrowed bell. Agatha positioned Doris at the imaginary table. Lights dim, Agatha instructed. Everyone closes their eyes. Serena rings the bell. You move to the kitchen. Show me. Doris shuffled stiffly behind Hodge, who observed with regal boredom. She paused by a chair, miming the careful step of a woman fearing she'd trip in the dark. Here, Doris said. This is where I turned. I might have brushed a cup. Agatha stared at the map, brain whirring. Bill said the poison was only in Gordon's cup, not the communal pot. Charles sat on the counter. So whoever did it needed his cup specifically, before the bell or during the breathing nonsense. Exactly, Agatha muttered. Precise, intentional. Doris looked ill. Oh dear. You're not helping, Agatha said. But thank you. Bill arrived half an hour later, bearing paper files and a frown. Agatha shoved the seating plan at him. Tell me about the medication, she demanded. Bill sighed. Gordon's heart medicine left him vulnerable. Digitalis could tip him into arrhythmia. Small dose, big consequences. So our killer needed plant knowledge, Agatha said. Mabel knows her foxglove. Too obvious, Charles murmured. And Neville? Agatha pressed. He's drowning in debt, Bill admitted. But poison takes nerve. Agatha paced, restless. Everything keeps circling back to opportunity. That dratted bell, those dimmed lights. Bill leafed through his notes. You're sure Lorna moved, then? She did, Doris squeaked. Bill rubbed his temple. Opportunity doesn't equal guilt. Agatha glared. Don't ruin this with reason. Bill ignored her. Look, the poisoner needed both timing and knowledge. Someone calm enough to act unnoticed. Serena, Agatha muttered. Or someone banking on her calm to mask their panic, Bill countered. It's not simple. Agatha hated when Bill made sense. She sent him away with tea he didn't want. Later, Agatha returned to Mindful Meadow. Serena was on the steps, shoulders slightly bowed. Agatha hesitated. It was the first time she'd seen the woman look human. You all right? Agatha asked gruffly. Serena looked up. People think I'm guilty because I'm calm. But calm is a shield, Mrs. Raisin. Without it, I'd fall apart. Agatha shifted uncomfortably. Well, shields crack. Serena gave a weary smile. I'm afraid the retreat won't survive. Gordon dragged us into debt. Neville tried to mend things but made everything worse. Now people think I killed him. Agatha felt something twist. Pity, perhaps. She didn't care for it. Everything sorts itself. Eventually. Serena nodded, though hope seemed scarce. Agatha backed away, unsettled by naked emotion. Suspicion felt easier than compassion. Back home she eyed the meditation bell perched on her mantelpiece. Rehearsed calm, carefully timed silence, closed eyes. The supper had been choreographed. Someone had used the performance to hide a murder. Hodge stretched on the hearth, tapping the bell with one paw. Its soft chime rippled through the room like a reminder. Agatha exhaled. Yes, yes, you clever thing. It's all timing. The kettle sighed in the kitchen. The bell chimed again. Hodge blinked serenely and Agatha muttered, If only murderers were as tidy as cats. The sound of the bell hung in the warm room, hinting that answers sat just beyond reach, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. Roy, if you say reclaim the narrative one more time, I'll reclaim your throat, Agatha snapped, sweeping past him and snatching a stack of Mindful Meadow flyers from her hallway table. She had been trying to decide whether Serena's latest attempt at public serenity was bravery or sheer arrogance. Roy had, of course, interpreted it as an opportunity for self-promotion. My darling Aggie, he said, following her into the sitting room with theatrical despair. The village is turning into a narrative war zone. Serena needs guided messaging, controlled optics, emotional reframing. Hodge needs controlled optics, Agatha retorted, watching her cat bat at Roy's scarf. Serena needs a confession. Roy flicked hair from his forehead. Or a PR evening. Healing circles are very on trend. Agatha paused. Healing circles suggested structured seating. Structured seating suggested predictable movement. Predictable movement suggested, finally, an ideal setup for trapping a murderer. She felt an unholy grin stretch across her face. We'll do it, she said. But we invite everyone. Neville, Mabel, Lorna, everyone who was there that night. You'll spin it as community reconciliation. Bill will come too. Oh, Bill will loathe that, Roy purred. Agatha smirked. He can loathe it in attendance. Bill indeed loathed it. "Agatha, this is not an official event," he said firmly when she rang him. "I can't allow you to stage interrogations, and I can't stop you either, which is worse." "You'll be there," Agatha said airily. "Think of it as crime-adjacent socializing." "Those are the worst words you've ever said." "Good. 7 o'clock. Mindful Meadows' barn glowed with candlelight that evening, arranged in tasteful clusters along the walls. Soft music hummed from a tape player, slightly warbled from overuse. Serena stood near the front of the room, her posture immaculate despite the faint shadows under her eyes. Her smile, gentle, steady, held together with more determination than ease. "Thank you for being here," she said softly as villagers trickled in. "Tonight is about listening. No judgment, no tension." Agatha noted the tremor under that final word. Good. A crack in the calm. Charles arrived with the languid confidence of a man who intended to contribute nothing but commentary. "I've brought a hip flask," he murmured to Agatha, "in case mindfulness threatens to kill me." "Hide it," she muttered. "Roy will confiscate it for optics." Neville Pratt hovered near the tea tables, rearranging cups with nervous precision. His hands shook each time someone approached him. Lorna Bryce entered late, arms tightly folded, giving Roy a look that could curdle milk. Mabel barged in next, glaring at every candle as though personal affronts. Serena invited everyone to sit on floor cushions. Agatha and Charles ignored this and took chairs. Bill arrived just in time to look at both of them with resigned dread. "Agatha, please behave." "I always do." "That's the problem." The meditation began with Serena's soothing voice guiding everyone to breathe. Agatha inhaled once loudly in sheer defiance. Charles closed his eyes just long enough to appear cooperative. Around them, villagers shifted uncomfortably on cushions. Serena continued, "Let us recognize tension. Let us acknowledge fear. Let us release—" "Release Neville's accounts," Charles muttered. Agatha elbowed him. During the next segment, Serena dimmed the lights with a small switch. The room dipped into a warm half-shadow. Candles flickered. A soft bell chimed. Everyone closed their eyes. At least, everyone except Agatha. Agatha kept hers narrowed to slits as she watched Neville drift, almost unconsciously, back toward the tea tray where he habitually hovered. There, the habitual move, the same one he'd made at the fatal supper. Agatha leaned deliberately across her seat and flicked her cup to the floor. It clattered loudly, rolling across the boards. Gasps. Mabel shrieked. Lorna swore under her breath. Agatha sat up straight, wearing an expression of innocent alarm. Oh dear. Butterfingers. The attention it drew created precisely the brief flurry she wanted. Several guests shifted. Serena reached instinctively toward her. Neville jerked visibly. Bill muttered something about avoidable chaos. When calm resumed, the bell chimed again and Serena brightened the lights, and Agatha stood. "I have an announcement," she declared, voice ringing with satisfaction. Bill's head dropped into his hands. "New police analysis," she lied blithely, "has revealed that the digitalis didn't come from foxglove in a garden. It came from tampered herb sample bottles stored here at the retreat." Serena stiffened. "Agatha, that isn't—" "Furthermore," Agatha continued, ignoring her, "the killer will likely attempt to hide evidence or repeat their method. Tonight, for example." A nervous murmur rippled through the barn. Mabel clutched her handbag. Lorna sat bolt upright. Roy's eyes gleamed like someone smelling sensational headlines. Agatha turned toward the tea table, letting her voice drop. "Most importantly, during the supper, a very specific cup was tampered with. And tonight—" Neville lunged. Not gracefully, not subtly. He darted forward with the instinctive desperation of a man certain his doom was sitting on porcelain. While Roy adjusted the candles and argued about atmosphere, Agatha quietly lifted 2 cups in turn and marked their undersides with a faint pencil line. No one noticed. Exactly as planned. Bill moved faster than anyone expected, intercepting Neville and catching his arm. "What exactly," Bill said quietly, "were you planning to do?" Neville sagged. No, I wasn't. You reached for that cup," Agatha said sharply, "the same way you reached for Gordon's." Neville's face drained of colour. His eyes went from Bill to Agatha to Serena, who watched him with pale horror. "I needed to move it," he whispered. "Why?" Bill asked. Neville's mouth opened and closed helplessly. Sweat beaded on his temples. Because Gordon was going to ruin me. He said he would tear the place apart, go through every account. He wanted everything. The receipts, the cash tin, the files. "Because you stole," Agatha said, her voice low but merciless. Neville flinched. "Borrowed. I always meant to put it back. The expansion scheme, Gordon said we'd make enough to cover anything missing, but then he changed his mind. He told me he'd expose everything." "And so," Agatha pressed, "the mindful supper became your chance." Neville nodded weakly, tears gathering. Serena's routines were always the same. Lights down, eyes closed, the bell. It gave me a moment, just a moment. I didn't mean to hurt anyone else, I just panicked. Serena pressed a hand to her mouth. Her expression was stricken, not shocked. "You used my practice," she whispered. "My structure, my calm." Neville burst into sobs. I'm so sorry, I didn't know what else to do." Lorna sat frozen. Mabel muttered about accountants being the real danger. Roy took careful mental notes for future monologues. Bill guided Neville toward a chair. "You'll come with me quietly," he said gently. Neville nodded, defeated. Agatha watched the collapse with equal parts satisfaction and unease. She had wanted a dramatic reveal. She hadn't expected the heartbreak behind it. Serena approached Agatha, voice trembling. "You could have warned me." "You could have told me your routines gave him cover," Agatha countered, though her tone lacked full bite. Serena said nothing. For the first time, her calm felt skin-thin and human. Charles squeezed Agatha's shoulder. "Well done, old thing. Full Poirot. Slightly deranged Poirot, but Poirot nonetheless." Agatha allowed herself a small smile. Someone had to force his hand. Bill, passing by with Neville, muttered, "Preferably not you next time." She ignored that. As the villagers dispersed in shaken clusters, Serena remained standing in the centre of the barn, staring at the tea table as though seeing her work through new, unsettling eyes. Agatha picked up one of the marked cups, turned it over, and muttered, "Calm is all very well, until someone weaponizes it." Later that night, back in her cottage, Agatha kicked off her shoes and dropped into her armchair. Hodge padded over, tail high, and head-butted her shin with lofty entitlement. She scratched behind his ears. "Well," she said to him, "calm cracked nicely." Hodge yawned, stretched, and curled in her lap. The kettle clicked on in the kitchen. A small rye piece finally settled. Earned, not mindful. Agatha Raisin declared with great satisfaction, "Well, that's that," even though she knew perfectly well that nothing in Castley was ever truly finished. The village had its own rhythm. Secrets sprouted like weeds. Gossip bloomed in every hedgerow, and tranquillity rarely lasted longer than a pot of WIT. Still, for the moment, Neville Pratt was in custody, Mindful Meadow was under temporary closure, and the national press had found a fresher scandal in an MP's expense report. It was almost peaceful, annoyingly so. Roy Silver swept into her cottage in a glitter of cologne and self-approval. "Darling, you wouldn't believe the media spin I salvaged. Serena practically owes me her future." He dropped onto Agatha's sofa, scattering sequins from his jacket like dandruff from a starlet. Imagine, local retreat survives tragedy. Thanks to positive community engagement. That headline was practically my child. Agatha eyed him dryly. "Your child needs washing." "Jealousy does not suit you," Roy tutted. "Anyway, I'm only here to ensure you understand how invaluable I was. Without my crisis strategy—" "Oh, do stop," Agatha snapped. "The police solved the case. I simply nudged things forward." "Nudged?" Roy let out a scandalized gasp. "You orchestrated an entire psychological sting. Honestly, if marketing fails, you could always become a crime consultant." "I'd rather clean public lavatories," Agatha muttered, though a flicker of pride warmed her. Roy, satisfied with his own contribution, blew her a kiss and flitted out again, announcing he had to return to London to stiffen Serena's brand narrative. The moment he vanished, the cottage seemed to exhale in relief. Peace lasted approximately 7 seconds before Charles Frayth called. "Agatha, my dear, I'm escaping to the estate. Someone mentioned yoga near my property boundary, and I refuse to risk enlightenment. It sounds ghastly." "You could try being helpful," Agatha said. "I was helpful. I was nearly murdered by herbal tea. I think a spot of fox hunting is restorative." "You don't hunt," she reminded him. "That's what makes it restorative," Charles replied serenely, and hung up, leaving Agatha glaring at the receiver as though it had insulted her personally. By late afternoon, serenity, false and irritating, had coated the village like an accidental glaze. Carsley's routines resumed, the locals already shifting their attentions to the new baker in Evesham or Mrs. Hardy's troubling new perm. Mindful Meadow, however, drooped visibly. Bookings were cancelled, the herb beds were neglected, and Serena moved through her grounds with quieter steps, as though treading around ghosts. Still, she stayed. Many expected her to flee back to London, but she surprised them. 2 days after Neville's arrest, Serena appeared at Agatha's cottage in a soft cardigan and sturdy sandals, looking older and far more human than she had during the investigation. "I came to thank you," she said simply. Agatha, caught mid-rearrangement of her mantelpiece, looked wrong-footed. "For what? I'm hardly the soothing type." "For seeing through people," Serena replied, "and for not letting Gordon's death become a circus. I know you think I'm overly calm, but truth is, I'd rather be known as someone who stayed steady than someone whose guest died under mysterious circumstances." Agatha bristled. "Well, it wasn't your fault." "Isn't that what calm is?" Serena smiled faintly. "Accepting what isn't your fault and carrying on." Agatha disliked the remark intensely, mostly because it pricked an uncomfortable truth. She murmured something indistinct, then offered Serena tea, which Serena declined with warm sincerity, and left her with a scented cushion for Hodge. Agatha loathed scented cushions, but accepted it anyway. As if summoned by intuition, Mrs. Blocksby arrived that evening, a basket of scones held in one gentle hand. "A small peace offering," she said as Agatha ushered her inside. "I thought you might appreciate some company." "I'm perfectly fine," Agatha insisted. "People keep talking as if I'm on the verge of collapse." Mrs. Blocksby smiled knowingly. "Not collapse. Perhaps reflection." "Ugh," Agatha said, pouring tea with unnecessary force. "I don't reflect. I improve." "That is one way to see it." Mrs. Blocksby settled onto the sofa beside Hodge, who immediately rolled onto his back to present his belly. "I thought Serena seemed steadier today." "Of course she's steady. It's irritating." Agatha folded her arms. "Bill says she's admirable. I say she's suspiciously serene." Mrs. Blocksby looked amused. "Calm is not always pretense, you know. Sometimes it's faith. Sometimes it's exhaustion." Agatha snorted. "Give me a good row over breathing exercises any day." Mrs. Blocksby's expression softened. "Agatha, there is no shame in learning calm, even a little." "I'll think about it," Agatha lied, knowing she absolutely wouldn't. They ate scones until Bill Wong appeared at the door wearing the expression of a man bracing for complaint. "I need to speak with you," he told Agatha. "Tea?" she offered. "No, and please stop hosting unofficial investigative gatherings without notifying me." "Oh, Bill," Agatha said breezily, "don't be tedious. Everything worked out?" "It worked out because you were lucky," he said pointedly, "and because Charles caught Neville's arm before he knocked the tea tray over. Please avoid staging traps, especially crowded ones." His tone was half serious, half fond, a balance he seemed to reserve solely for Agatha. She softened. "Thank you for the warning." Bill nodded, visibly relieved. "I mean it. And, well done. Officially, you are receiving no credit. Unofficially, you were instrumental." Agatha felt an odd twist in her chest. Praise from Bill always landed with surprising warmth. They talked briefly about the loose ends, Neville's confession, Gordon's financial chaos, Lorna's now stabilized future thanks to sympathetic insurers. Mabel had been cleared of suspicion, much to her disappointment. She had quite enjoyed the dramatic attention. Once Bill left, the cottage sagged back into its familiar, comforting shape. The air felt still, the sort of stillness that came only after a case closed and the adrenaline evaporated. Hodge sprawled over the armchair like a retired emperor. His tail thumped occasionally against Serena's scented cushion, releasing whiffs of lavender Agatha pretended not to like. She moved around the room restlessly, tidying things that weren't untidy. Later, with the window open an inch and the village lamps glowing outside, Agatha lit a cigarette. Just one, not a ritual, simply a thought made visible. Smoke spiraled upward, pale against the dark. She inhaled, then exhaled slowly, almost meditatively. If Serena had seen her, she would have called it mindful breathing. Agatha would have thrown her out. She glanced at the village street below, quiet lanes, soft yellow windows, the occasional shape of a neighbour returning home. The Cotswolds had never pretended to be tranquil. They merely looked the part. Pruned hedges concealed blazing rows, cosy kitchens hid decades-old feuds, and flower beds frequently masked toxic plants, both figurative and literal. Agatha watched the quiet and felt both comforted and irritated. "Calm," she muttered, "is overrated." Hodge answered with a lazy flick of his tail. Carsley's peace always felt temporary, a polite pause between disasters. Agatha knew better than to expect it to last. Somewhere in someone's kitchen or committee meeting or moral conscience, a new quarrel or plot or humiliation was germinating, waiting to disrupt her next attempt at dignity. She stubbed her cigarette into the tray, crossed the room and scratched Hodge's head. He stretched luxuriously, claws flexing, purring like an engine warming for trouble. The telephone sat on the small table by the lamp. A harmless thing, innocent, silent. Agatha eyed it. Perhaps someone would call. Perhaps someone should. She wouldn't mind, not really, if the next case arrived sooner rather than later. Peace made her itchy. Quiet made her suspicious. Calm made her unbearable. She hovered a moment longer, fingers brushing the receiver. "Well," she murmured, "let's see what the world's got planned next." Hodge stretched again, a perfect domestic punctuation mark, as Agatha reached slowly, almost hopefully, for the telephone.